Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is nutrition, and we're going to be doing nutrition concepts for aesthetic athletes. So our last nutrition podcast we did was for strength athletes, so I wanted to come back and do one for aesthetic athletes. You will notice that if you've listened to both, that there are a lot of commonalities between the two, but there are going to be some specific type differences. But there are a lot of commonalities. Just, healthy eating, to be strong, have muscle, and be lean is, going to be very similar, depending on, it might be a little bit different if you want more strength versus muscle, or more, leanness versus the other two. There's going to be small changes, but you're still working with the same elements. So, what we're going to discuss in this podcast is the goal of building muscle while staying as lean as possible, and also the goal of losing fat while keeping as much muscle as possible. So I have coached people to get pro cards, so I do know what I'm doing, if you don't know that much about me. So I also have a master's in human nutrition, and I have a bachelor's in health and phys ed, which doesn't really do anything about food, but it sounds good. And I have an ACSM certification for personal training. Again, that has some nutrition in it, but that's more performance-based nutrition and more cardiovascular endurance-based nutrition than actual aesthetic-based nutrition. So the aesthetic-based nutrition information that I've learned has pretty much been through experimenting on my own. So I've been exercising now for 20 years. I've been a personal trainer for 17 years. And I've helped people do shows in bikini, figure, physique, male and female bodybuilding, men's physique. So kind of all the categories. And like I said, I've helped people get pro cards. So I've helped people do their first show ever, and then also people do some of the highest shows possible. So the information is the same for everyone. The degree of detail and how in-depth you get is obviously different per person, and depending on the level they're at. But it is pretty much always the same stuff. So you control calories, make sure you eat enough protein, and you match your meal timing to your energy demands. That's it. So that's what we're going to go through, but that's essentially the big three nutrition-wise. And then you do need to track and see what is happening to your body to make sure that you have the balance correct of all three of those elements. And we do that with checking body weight on a scale, photographs, since you're an aesthetic athlete, what you look like does matter, and then volume progressions in your training. So for strength athletes, for example, their be-all, end-all is going to be, are they getting stronger? For an aesthetic athlete, your be-all, end-all is, are you looking better? So for what your goals are you improving? So if your goal is to balance out your physique, are you getting a more balance? If your goal is to add mass because you're too undersized, then are you adding mass? If you have enough mass, but you're trying to refine and just kind of bring up a few small things here or there and really work on maybe getting lean, like maybe you've never been shredded all the way before. So all this stuff does change a little bit, but aesthetics is your be-all, end-all. So photographs are really going to help to make sure you're tracking stuff and getting the best results that you would want, okay? So in regards to calories, so this would be true of both building muscle to stay lean or losing fat while keeping the muscle. You're going to need to pay attention to calories. So how many calories do you need? We have done a podcast in the past, number 153, that discusses that in more detail, but that is more general population based. And in a sense, in that podcast, the 153, I basically yell at them for asking me the question of how many calories do I need, because they never count calories anyhow. So I could tell them some arbitrary number, they're never going to count the damn stuff. So usually the mistakes they're making is more so just meal timing and portion control. So that's what I yell at them for, is to focus on that instead of a specific number. Now, if you're an aesthetic athlete, that means, I'm assuming that if you fall into the category of aesthetic athlete, you are doing some competitive aspect of aesthetics. So you are going to actually need to know caloric numbers, and you would actually put in the effort to track them. In general, and you guys would know this if you're an aesthetic athlete, is the calculation or the general amount you need is your body weight times about 11 to 13. So body weight times 11 if you're kind of a little softer at the moment, a little pudgy. Body weight times 13 if you're super lean and you have a high active metabolism. For most people, you could probably just start at body weight times 12, and that's going to give you a good place to start. You probably, and most likely, will have to modify from there, but that's at least a good place to start. Okay? So don't bite my head off if you do that calculation and you're like, oh my God, that's, I eat twice as much. Well, if you look good, cool, great, keep doing that. Or if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm only eating like half that much. Well, you might be under eating. So you might find, and this is very true of males and females, that they actually need to eat more to get leaner. So that's one of the things I do very, very commonly with my aesthetic athletes is they usually, by the time they've come to me, they've already done a lot of the work in the sense of trying to build muscle on their own. They've already tried to be lean, they've done diets a couple times, and they just never seem to really get shredded. So they want somebody to help kind of put in those last pieces. And often they over-exercise and under-eat. Now, the over-exercise isn't actually that bad. You just have to eat enough to it. Okay? So I very rarely will get them to do less exercise. I just make them eat more food. So your body is a machine. We're doing body building. So even if you're a bikini, you're trying to build a great body. Even if you're physique or figure, you're trying to build a great body. Okay? So it's all body building in a sense. We're building an awesome sculpture of ourselves. And with that in mind, if it's a building process, you want activity and you want food. The food is going to make... The activity tells your body what changes to make. The food allows your body to make those changes. If you're under eating, of course you're not going to be as lean as you can be or as muscular as you can be because you're under fueling your system. So the whole process is only running at half efficiency. So if you eat more in these cases, where if somebody does that body weight times 12 and they realize right now they're only eating like body weight times 8, you're probably under eating and you're really, really holding yourself back from results. Now, often in the case of that, it's going to be hard for the person to accept the fact that you have to eat more because if they have been eating less, their metabolism is kind of shit. So when you start getting them to eat more incrementally, they actually will gain some weight on a scale, but that's just their muscles filling out, not being so flat. They're holding glycogen now, which is carbs and water and sodium in their muscles. So that's kind of like fuel in your muscles. So their body kind of also has to like stoke up the fire of their metabolism. So at first it's like putting wood on a fire. You throw the wood on and nothing happens. Okay, you just made a big pile of wood, so not a big fire. Then all of a sudden the wood has to catch on fire, the fire has to start to break it down, consume the material of the wood, and then all of a sudden the fire grows. So when you have somebody who has a slow metabolism and they've been coming from an under-eating place, it's going to be a slow go to get them up and running, and they might feel kind of like fluffier, they might feel greater water retention. Like I said, the scale might go up a few pounds, but it's all in the process of getting you back to a healthier place. If you've been under-eating, you're unhealthy. Your body is unhealthy just like somebody who's overweight. It's going to take a transitional period to get you back to healthy. It's not a smooth road. Everything just doesn't get to go perfect. You don't get to eat more food and all of a sudden just look amazing the next day. There's a transition period, okay? So you have to trust in that transition period, or you can keep doing the same stupid shit you've been doing forever and look the exact same as you've been looking forever. But, that's your choice. So, our goals, like we said, is calories. That gives us a range about body weight times 11 to 13. You can start at body weight times 12. You would see what results you're getting there based on everything else we're about to talk about. And then you want to do caloric cycling. So when we say body weight times 12, that gives you the amount of calories you should have per day. You want to times that by 7. That gives you your weekly average for your caloric goal. Okay? So that's like your weekly amount, I guess. So the amount of calories per day is just kind of what we want to average throughout the week. So what we would do is on days you're more active, like say leg days, and especially like a leg high volume day, you're going to need higher calories on that day. So maybe on that day you eat 200 calories extra. But on a day off, when you're not in the gym, you eat 200 calories less. So your average, your daily average, as you look at the course of a week, will still be the same, but you're going to create that cycling pattern where you eat more when you do more, eat less when you do less. That's going to help you get further fine-tuned in terms of being lean and muscular. So with the strength athletes, I didn't mention the concept of caloric cycling because it's not as important for them. So when they say they want to be lean, I mean, as a strength athlete, if you were, 10 to 15% body fat, that's pretty damn lean. As an aesthetic athlete, hell no, that ain't going to work. So you're going to have to get on stage at under 10%. So our details have to be more specific. And one of the ways of getting more specific is to create caloric cycling. So in podcast number 173, we discussed caloric cycling, and I would have went through and kind of explained how to set that up. But in general, you want to have a high, medium, and low. days: high calorie days, medium days, and low calorie days. Low calorie days are going to be the days you're inactive, okay, not at the gym or just doing basic kind of like low level maintenance activities. Your high calorie days are the highest volume workload of workouts. So that way your body has the most fuel when it needs fuel. It has no excess fuel when it doesn't need excess fuel on the days off. So that way you get the most efficiency in terms of creating the best stimulus out of your workouts, but you don't get a surplus of calories on the days off, and you don't get underfed on the days you want to be highly active. So you're really just trying to match meal timing, like caloric timing, not only in the sense of like throughout the course of the day, but also from day to day. So we want to do caloric cycling, caloric matching all times. Like every minute of the day, it'd be wonderful if we could perfectly match our calories. So you do want to look at it from meal to meal, and then also from day to day. Okay? So how much protein do you need out of all those calories? In general, the range they're going to say is 0.6 to 1 gram per pound. If you're an aesthetic athlete, and especially if you're training with a form that creates a lot of muscular damage, you're going to need on that higher range. You're going to need that 0.8 gram to 1 gram per pound of body weight. So you're going to need that higher amount, because if you're in the gym, you're tearing up muscle tissue, your muscle tissue is going to need protein to repair itself. So muscles do not repair through carbohydrates, they do not repair through protein, they only repair through, they don't repair through carbohydrates and they don't repair through fat. They only repair through protein. So you're going to need protein in your diet. So especially on the people who are aesthetic athletes, you're probably maximizing your training to the best that you can make it. So you're going to need a highest priority of protein at all times. If somebody's general population, they go to the gym and they do some stuff, but they're not like that into it, they're not going to create such a significant degree of muscle damage. Therefore, they're not going to have as high of a need to really push up to that 1 gram per pound. So if you are an aesthetic athlete, the general range is 0.6 to 1 gram, but you probably need to be at 1 gram. Okay? And podcast number 33 is where we discussed the concept of how much protein do you need. Also, in podcast number 216, it's titled Protein Digestion and Selection Type. What that podcast is helpful for is to knowing what type of protein you should have at what times of the day. Okay? Not all protein is created equal. So there's casein protein, there's whey protein, there's, we know that through our supplements, but then also just different nutritional sources of protein digest at different rates. Okay, like an egg, whether it has a yolk or no yolk, like egg white, that digests at a different rate. Whether you have, a white fish versus salmon, or even chicken versus beef, turkey, all those things have different digestion rates. So you need to make sure you're eating the right type of protein for when you need the protein in your bloodstream. So that's one of the things I do, especially with my highest level people who want pro cards, is we're eating proteins, like protein types that digest at the exact time we need all damn day. So if we have meals every 3 to 4 hours, we have a protein source that digests within 3 to 4 hours. But maybe that last meal of the day, if they're going to go to bed and be sleeping for 8 hours, or it's 8 hours till the next meal, we might focus more on red meat because that takes longer to digest. So that way they'll have a more constant source of protein coming into their body throughout the night. Okay? So it's really important that you keep protein flushing into your system at all times, so that way you can maximally build muscle and stave off muscle loss. So that way your body doesn't have nothing all of a sudden and start stripping muscle down. Okay? So you always want to make sure there's protein in your system, and that's one of the best things, is making sure you match your protein sources to the digestion rate that you want. So if you want a 5-hour source, a 5-hour time frame, you need to find a 5-hour source. If you have an 8-hour time frame, you have to find an 8-hour source. So that is really, really, really important, okay? If you really, truly want to maximize your muscle mass compared to your leanness. So that's going to be podcast number 216. Now, the next thing we'll talk about here is meal timing. And like we said, just meal timing is important because if you have excessive calories floating around when you don't need them, that can contribute to body fat formation. If you have inadequate caloric amount, at times you really did need calories, you're minimizing your muscle development. You're actually promoting muscle loss, okay? And your body can actually become too stressed to burn off body fat if you let that happen too often. Body fat is stored calories. Our body said, hey, I might need this later. I'm going to hold on to it. Well, if you constantly keep it stressed and underfed, it's not going to want to get rid of body fat because that's the only thing it thinks that's keeping it from death. So you have to be very nice to your body. Make sure you eat an adequate amount of calories so that way it doesn't think the body fat that it's saving is that important. then it'll let more and more of it go. Okay? So that's really important. In general, those are the 3 nutritional things you want to look at. Macronutrient quality, like whether you're eating, like brown rice versus white rice. Does that stuff matter? Yeah, it does, but not anywhere near what people think it does. It really doesn't matter that much. I've had people who have pro cards who were eating white rice, the day of the show. So it's just finding it's more important to find nutrients that you digest well. So when you're looking at supplements, digestive aids are probably one of the better type of supplements you could ever get that people don't often talk about. So because the more you can kind of like break down and assimilate your food, so be able to use the macronutrients and everything well, your body's going to look better, feel better, be leaner, be bigger, be stronger, all that good stuff. So your quality of digestion is extremely important, and that's more important paying attention to that than it is to eat quote-unquote strict health foods that sometimes your body doesn't digest well. So I've had clients who tried to eat brown rice and they got bloated. They had like distended stomachs. They kind of just didn't feel good all day, not good energy. We switched them back over to white rice. They felt freaking amazing. They looked better because their water retention went down because their stress went down, their digestive stress. So don't get too hung up on the quality of the type of macronutrients you're having. So now, granted, you can't eat Oreos and look amazing, okay? So we're talking about this within like still quote-unquote healthy foods. So you can't eat like a jackass and expect to look good, okay? So if you're one of those if it fits your macros people where you just eat a bunch of stupid shit, and as long as it's, hey, they said 30 grams of carbs, I guess I can have Oreos. No, that is not going to work. You will not look the best you can look. You can't eat donuts and pies and cakes and shit. So you have to eat real healthy, good food that your body can break down, okay? So, once you have your nutrition tracked and you're paying attention to your calories, you have a caloric cycling pattern going on, you have your protein count accounted for every day. Excuse me. A long day. And you have your meal timing accounted for. So you have most of your calories around your workouts, and your kind of daily pattern of caloric intake is matching your daily pattern of caloric output, okay? You then want to watch body weight scale. So you want to weigh your body weight, weigh yourself on a scale, and then you want to take photos. So if you're trying to build muscle while staying lean, you need to weigh more. The scale needs to go up. So if you are following a plan to build muscle, and in 8 weeks you weigh the exact same amount as you weigh today, you failed your plan. You may have built a small amount of muscle. You may have gotten somewhat leaner, but you didn't build all the muscle that was possible. Okay? So you have to allow your body weight to go up if you want to build muscle. You can't say I'm building muscle and then weigh the exact same at the end of the process. It isn't going to work. Okay? You would have had minimal effect of fat loss and minimal effect of building muscle rather than maximal effect of muscle building. Okay? You have to allow the scale to go up. Don't freak out. That is part of the process. It is a good thing if the scale is moving, if your goal is to build muscle. Okay? Now, if you want to be super duper conservative, you can look for a rate of 0.5 pounds per week over the course of, say, 12 to 16 weeks. So if you're looking at 12 weeks, you should gain a conservative 6 pounds. Now, there are going to be some people who disagree with parts of this. I don't really care. I know this stuff works. So I've read all the research. I've seen everybody try everything under the sun. I've had some clients where we went at higher ranges. Some clients where we went, actually nobody that I went lower with because it wasn't effective to go lower. Okay? So we've done it a lot of ways. So what I'm presenting to you now is some general information. So you might find for yourself, so for myself, for example, is I actually do better when I allow myself to do bigger swings. So I might take 16 weeks and gain 16 or even 24 pounds. And then I take the next 8 weeks and clean off about 4 pounds of that. I look really good. Works for me. I've had other clients where if I try to gain 16 pounds in 16 weeks, they're going to freak the hell out because maybe they came from an eating disorder background. So we have to be a little more conservative for them. So we go for that half-pound goal. And is it hard to measure half pound at a week at a time? Hell yeah, very much is. So you're more so looking for a pattern. So we typically weigh ourselves on Mondays and Thursdays. I've gone over this in past podcasts, why those days are. But in general, you do our best typically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we want to weigh ourselves on Thursday morning. Why don't we do it Friday morning? Because oftentimes Fridays get lumped into trips and vacations, and sometimes you won't be available on Friday morning. So if you weigh yourself on Thursday, that tells you what you weigh after the most consecutive days of best behavior. If you weigh yourself on Monday, that tells you how much of an asshole you were over the weekend. And if you have a big change from Thursday to the next Monday, you ate like an idiot, and you need to control yourself over the weekend. Okay? So that's the benefit of having those 2 days. You want to weigh yourself in the morning after you go to the bathroom, but before you drink or eat anything. Cool. Now, volume progressions. You need to be improving in your workouts. So you need to have some way of knowing you're moving more weight, either heavier weight, more reps, more sets. Your volume, your workload has to increase if you want your muscle mass to increase, okay? So you need to be tracking that. If you're going into the gym and just doing fun shit till it hurts and burns, that's cool. That's a fun way to train in the off season, but it ain't going to work, okay, when you're getting ready for a show. You need to have actual factual data that you're improving. The reason why is you diet for a show, you're slowly going to feel worse and worse, so it's going to be harder and harder to put in the same level of effort. So you're going to get towards the end of your diet thinking you're going #beast mode when you're actually just doing the same shit you would have done beforehand. You're just doing it now on less fuel, so it feels harder. But you actually haven't improved. So you need to be tracking your volume, need to be tracking how much work you're doing in your workouts, okay? So, I don't know if I've done a podcast on that. I'm pretty sure I have in the past. Let me look up a number for that. So, but you need to be tracking your improvements on things. That didn't work. Hold on a second. Progressions. Hey, there we go. Podcast number 70, titled The Importance of Progressions. So I would have went through and kind of talked about why you need to track and how you need to track what you do. So that way you can make sure that you're actually making progress. Okay, guys and girls? Now, specifics for losing fat while keeping as much muscle as possible. Everything we just discussed is 100% important, but now you're going to be looking for that scale to go down. And again, a conservative number is 0.5, but anywhere usually around 1 pound per week. So in 8 to 12 weeks, you should lose 8 to 12 pounds, and that's without counting any water loss effect on that initial week, first week. So if you just transitioned from off-season to a diet, or from a pre-cut to a real cut, you might have an initial week where you lose 3 to 4 pounds just from water weight differences. But then from that week on, you should average out around a pound of body fat lost per week. And if you go any faster than that, you're more likely to lose some muscle that you wanted to keep, and you're more likely to have loose skin. And you're just going to kind of feel like crap because you're having to take more calories away. So it's better to kind of do longer duration diets and cuts and do them in stages. So I've had people get pro cars before where we did maybe 6 weeks of pushing, 2 weeks to hold, 6 weeks to push, 2 weeks to hold. And that just kind of helped control cortisol levels. It helped control the madness in their mind from all the aggressiveness and the effects of getting down to like stupid lean body weight. Okay? Now, so you focus on the same things, but what you need to focus on when you're trying to maintain muscle mass while losing fat is don't decrease calories right away, increase your activity. You need to increase activity that is joint friendly. Do not beat the shit out of your joints, so your body will hurt, you won't feel good, and your diet is not going to go well. So do joint friendly activities. And I'm a bigger fan of muscle cardio. So go listen to podcast number 30, and it discusses what muscle cardio is, in the concept of using using muscle damage for fat loss. So we've done that in another podcast, which was podcast number 181, titled Using Muscle Damage for Fat Loss. That explains why the concept of muscle cardio, which is podcast number 30, why it's so damn effective and why it's better than walking on a treadmill, elliptical, step mill, all that stuff. So step mill does work if you squeeze the hell out of your glutes while you're walking. That's a little bit better than just kind of meandering on the machine and trying not to die. But muscle cardio, using your muscles for cardiovascular effect, is a significantly more effective means of losing body fat while maintaining muscle mass. Okay? Don't do the fasted cardio shit that everybody used to do back in the day. You will absolutely lose muscle more than needed. Okay? there's effective ways to lose just as much fat without losing all that muscle. So we did a general cardio information podcast, number 120, that discusses some of that effect, okay? So the idea is to move more, not eat less. Okay, move more and eat what you've been normally eating. So that'll help get you lean first. That'll help also boost your metabolism. That helps a whole lot of helpful hormonal processes as well. So then when you do have to start reducing calories, you're starting from like the peak condition, hormonally, physically, mentally, everything, to then cut down, okay? So you still want to aim also for progressions in your training. It's true that as you eat less, you're going to have a harder time doing so. It's going to feel more straining to kind of put in a better effort every workout. And also you might find that your strength level decreases as your body weight continues to drop. So you might not be able to make volume progressions in added weight, but you can still make volume progressions in added reps and sets and shorter rest periods even. I've even split people's workouts into 2 parts. So they'll do a morning and like an AM and a PM workout. And that way they still get a high volume in, but they can split the workload up. So that way they don't have such an energy demand at one time. And that's also really just a cool way to kind of get people leaner and while getting them still the ability to do more work. Okay? So that's super duper duper important. Also, you want to try to maintain as much heavy work as you can safely. So for clients in the past, you know, if they've had like, if we know what their heavy like 5 rep max is on squats, I might have them do like, you know, 10 sets of 1 to 2 reps with only 30 seconds in between. And that turns into a little bit of muscle cardio, but it also keeps their CNS system high. It keeps their body's demand for muscle tissue high. So still doing heavy weights, you just have to do it submaximally. And you have to structure it in ways in which it still has a challenge to it, but it's safe. Okay? So that's going to be some good information for you guys. If you're an aesthetic athlete, there are some concepts for you to think of nutrition-wise. So you need to make sure you track your calories and do caloric swings, caloric cycling. You need to track your protein, make sure you're having enough at all times, even while dieting. And you need to pay attention to your meal timing. So you need to make sure that you're eating the right amount of calories when you're more active, eat less calories when you're less active. Okay? You need to track your body weight in photos. You need to track your volume progressions. Make sure you're still improving in your training. And if you're going to try to cut weight, do it through high activity first, joint-friendly, muscle-involved activity. So things like that muscle cardio, podcast number 30. And again, does macronutrient quality matter? Like brown rice versus white rice, you know, brown like wheat bread versus white bread. It doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Okay? It's more important to find foods that your body digests well, that doesn't cause digestive stress, that provides you with really good energy sources. All that stuff is way more important than the finer details of things. Okay? Do supplements help? Oh, hell yes. So find a digestive aid supplement. That's going to be the best thing. You can also use a joint supplement towards the end of your diet. So while your calories are low, your body might be feeling beat up from all the high activity. Joint supplements kind of help. Okay, reinforce joint health. And then also you can do some fat burners and some energy pills and stuff like that. But keep that to the very end, but maybe like the last 6 weeks of the diet. So that way, when the going gets rough, you'll have more aids at that time. If you use fat burners too early, your body becomes accustomed to them. They don't work as well. And then when you really would have needed them towards the end of the diet, they'll be ineffective. So hold off on that stuff until the last 6 weeks or so. Okay? Cool. So hopefully this was helpful. Remember that if you want to build muscle while staying lean or lose fat while keeping on as much muscle as possible, all of that requires patience. So bodybuilding, whether it's bikini figure, you know, men, women, all that stuff, when you're trying to change your aesthetics, it's a slow process. It's a slow sport. You pay attention every damn minute of every day, but it takes, you know, weeks and months to see the differences, the effects. So you have to have patience, okay? So only make nutrition changes about every 2 or so weeks. So if you change it any faster than that, you're not going to really see the effect of the last change you just made. So I wouldn't change them, you know, any sooner than every 2 weeks. I usually wait about every 3 or 4 weeks until we get to the last weeks of the diet. In the last 3 or 4 weeks of the diet, we will change things much faster. So maybe even like once a week or even once every 5 days or so, depending on what we see the body responding as. Cool. Now, if you want any help setting up a diet for yourself based on all this stuff, we're happy to help you. So I want to give you all this information for free so you can do it yourself. But if you would like